Hello, everyone. I'm Gorilla Monsoon.
And I'm your host, Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh, why don't you be serious? You're not the host, Brain.
Well, I should be.
Chris DiFrancesco is the host.
Chris DiFrancesco?
Yes, that's correct. I didn't stutter.
Didn't he get whacked in an episode of The Sopranos?
Oh, give me a break. He hosts a podcast, Brain.
Who the hell doesn't?
Well, his is about wrestling.
Who the hell's isn't?
He talks about old wrestling.
Wow! What a novel idea.
Oh, give me a break.
Next, you're going to tell me he's got a wrestling-themed name for the show?
Well,
Come on, Monsoon, spit it out.
it's the Hot Tag Wrestling Podcast.
So what?
And it's starting now.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hot Tag Wrestling Show. I am Chris DiFrancesco. That is George Rogers here on the RTB Philly Sports Network, presented by SeatGeek. It is the War Room, Week 2, covering the Monday Night Wars, and we finally have a Monday Night Raw to take care of and watch and pay attention to. George,
I die a little bit each time inside when you mention the Ring the Bell Network.
I'm sorry.
I die a little bit inside every time.
Listen, you should be happy. We're all happy here. The Cowboys blew out the Browns.
Yeah, good wins around for everybody. We'll see what
That's
your
right.
49ers do tonight without Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, CMC's out?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Breaking news, water is wet.
Yeah, I had no idea. All right, George, what's going on, man? Like, how was your weekend? How you doing?
You know, Chris, I woke up the other morning and my window was open and I felt that fall chill come in. I'm like, yeah, here we are. It's my time of year. Last night, I went and saw WrestleMania alumni Alice Cooper live, also with WWE alumni Rob Zombie from that time that he did Edge's music. We all remember that for that minute and a half.
Absolutely.
Good show.
Yeah, until Vince
show all
wanted
around.
to stop writing him checks. So they're like, look, we're going to move on from here.
Well, I mean, when you look at Rob Zombie, you're like, maybe Vince was shitting on his head too.
It wouldn't shock me. I'm sure
And then
Rob Zombie used it as
watched it.
inspiration in his
Yeah.
Halloween film.
Yeah. Because, we're going to have real Michael Myers shit on somebody's head. Probably. I don't know why I made him sound like Vince, but we're going with it.
We're going to go with it. So yeah, tonight we are covering the Monday Night Wars Week 2. Technically, it's Week 1 because there was a Raw opposite side of Nitro. Last week when we covered the very first week here, it actually was 2 days before the 29th anniversary of the inaugural episode of Monday Nitro. And we didn't have a Raw to cover because they were preempted by, at that time, the U.S. Open. So there was no Monday Night Raw last week. So we had a chance to really delve into the very first Monday Nitro in the Mall of America in Minnesota. But this week, Monday Night Raw is back. Nitro is live again from Miami, Florida. So we have plenty to talk about. We got 2 shows to talk about. I'll talk about the ratings before we get into there. And then we'll talk about both shows simultaneously in a way. And then at the end, we'll decide who won the week. Obviously, we'll know who won the week in terms of our ratings. But in our opinion, on a rewatch almost 30 years later, which show was better? And we're going to keep doing that each and every week until the fake year 2001. So let's see how long we can keep this up. But I know George wants to talk about probably the hottest news in wrestling.
Bret Hart's on Raw tonight.
Bret Hart's on Raw. Goldberg is not there.
Goldberg is not there.
Right.
Probably for a good reason. The reason was he wasn't invited.
Yes, that's correct. So, I mean, the reason everyone was wondering, why is Bret Hart there? And I really don't like calling people stupid, but all they got to do is see where Raw is tonight. And you kind of figured
you don't have to be Columbo or
the fact that we have a Columbo reference
or Benoit Blanc to figure out why Bret Hart is at Monday Night Raw.
So yeah, tonight Raw commences, or it's going on right now as we are live from the Saddle Dome in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. It is going to be the last wrestling show at that arena as they are knocking that place down.
Chris, I appreciate your subtle Lance Storm reference there.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And you say you don't like ECW. I don't know.
Look,
I don't know about you.
I'm trying to be serious for a minute, okay? All I'm trying to do.
What a guy.
What a guy.
What a guy.
That's what I'm here for. I'm
When's
here
Lance
with my
going in the Hall of Fame?
I'm here with my arms wide open. So
but what if you weren't?
What if I wasn't? So I'm not sure what Bret's going to do. We'll probably be live here while Bret is making his appearance. I have it recording, so I'll watch it when I'm done. But yeah, I'm happy that Bret's inside a WWE ring again. Not sure what he's going to say, what he's going to be involved with, but it's always cool to see the Hitman come back.
And he'll get a monster pop.
Oh, this is going to be, Calgary Stampede like.
It's going to blow Bahrain out of the water.
And listen, Bahrain is probably the singular reason why Bret the Hitman Hart, developed more fan mail in the early 90s than Hulk Hogan.
Absolutely.
The immortal Bret Hart in Bahrain. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I digress. So
the Bretster.
The Bretster. So I want to ask you, George, because you're up to it. What happened in the other wrestling promotion this past weekend? A lot of controversy coming out of this. I know you had some, I guess, opinions or thoughts as to maybe what might not be going so well with the contract discussions and the TV deal between Warner Brothers Discovery and AEW, based on what you all saw at All Out.
All In. I don't know. I mean, it's weird it's weird that they do pay-per-views like 2 weeks apart. Yeah. That's kind of odd. Mm-hmm. I mean, even like the years that we've been watching, the WWF, WCW, ECW, they didn't do that shit 2 weeks apart. It's weird, but whatever. It works for them, I guess. So if it works for them, then I guess bully for them. Keep doing it until you run out of business. But I mean, I know there's been talks for the last, I don't know how many months, probably since January, if I'm really going to be honest, because as soon as that Netflix deal was announced for the WWE, all of us, it was all the talk was, you think that's go wait till AEW gets her deal, and then the talk has been about, is AEW going to get the big money deal from Warner Brothers Discovery, and and I know Warner Brothers Discovery is sitting about $9 billion in the hole. So I don't know what sort of big offers they're making. And Warner Brothers Discovery, not exactly well known for their money-making prowess in the last few years. I mean, these people go out of their way to throw money away. So it's pretty insane that Tony is hanging his hat on an extremely unreliable company. It isn't like they're going for Disney or Universal. You're going with Warner Brothers, which is a shame because that used to be such a once proud brand name that you'd see a Warner Brothers logo on something. You're like, oh, this is going to be good. Now I look at the Warner Brothers logo. I'm like, all right, how much money is this movie going to make? Or how much money is this movie going to lose?
Or how much is this movie not going to make? Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and I told you because I thought it was weird that Collision was going head to head with SmackDown. I'm like, well, this is odd. Like, why would they move Collision to Friday? And I looked, I was like, oh, like there's a Star Wars marathon on TNT on Saturday. I'm like, you telling me they moved their live show for a 47-year-old franchise that everybody has seen and probably owns in some capacity? It was just kind of wild to me. But then I remembered, oh, they had the pay-per-view Saturday night. That's why they moved it. So they had Collision and Rampage back to back on Friday, which I'm sure drew no ratings because it went up against SmackDown and went up against Friday Night Football, which is a unheard of feat. I don't remember the last time there was a football game on a Friday.
I can't even recall.
If there ever was. And it was the Eagles and the Packers, two massive fan bases. I'm not going to diminish that. I'm not going to shit on your fucking team, Chris, even though I hate everything about your franchise and your fucking city. But no, I don't hate the city. I just hate the people in it. But I digress. So I thought it was weird. I'm like, well, like they're not going to get any viewers. I'm like, this is a weird like tactic. Like maybe WB moved them so they can be like, oh, well, you didn't get any viewers this day. Why should I trust you if your viewers aren't going to follow you? Like almost setting them up to fail.
Right.
And I was like, oh no, they got the pay-per-view, so it was Tony, just did like a bump of coke. He's like, let's go against SmackDown. Probably. Let's show them a thing or two. It's like, yeah, oh, sure, I bet you will. But then at the end of Rampage, Tony Khan came out and he said, quote, I feel pretty good to say AW on TBS and TNT. I think it's here to stay. That doesn't really sound like confidence to me. Because he's saying, I feel pretty good and I think. Not a definite, it's here to stay. Just, I think it's going to happen. But these negotiations have apparently been going on for months. I think the window is actually closed for the negotiation. So I think it's whether Tony wants to accept the deal that they're giving them or he's going to try and parlay this to somebody else. But after what happened at All In,
right,
they're going to have a really hard time trying to sell anybody, including WB, who they're currently with, on getting some sort of a big money deal. And Chris, you and I grew up in the 90s.
Yeah.
We lived through the Attitude Era, watched it weekly, religiously.
Yep.
I watched ECW. I know you didn't think it existed because your TV didn't get TNN and you refused to watch the Nashville Network because you hate the Grand Ole Opry, and that's fine.
I was a WWF shill back then.
It was, yeah. But admittedly, it was hard to find ECW because one week it would be on, another week it wouldn't be. But it was hard to get. But the reason why ECW couldn't land a TV deal was because they were too outrageous for the network. So, especially when they had, Sandman getting crucified and Sandman's wife is getting pile drive through tables by Rhino, and Tommy Dreamer is beating fucking women. And ECW was, it was extreme to a fault. It wasn't just a name. That was literally what they were. So they had a really hard time trying to lock down a deal, and seeing what happened at All In really kind of gave the shades of ECW. The pay-per-view, from what I heard, the shills will say it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. They're saying, oh, this is better than Bash in Berlin. Well, you apparently didn't watch Bash in Berlin because that was actually really good and didn't need gimmick matches to get over. They did have a strap match, but that was the second match in a brewing feud that's been brewing since the Royal Rumble. So they didn't even need the gimmick. It was just the next progression for the storyline. That's how that works. You get your one-on-one, then you get your gimmick match, then you get your bigger gimmick match for your final. That's storytelling 101. Chris, you would say that. Bischoff would say that. Even that dumbass Russo would say that. Except his big match would be a pinata on a pole match or Viagra on a pole. Then next thing you know, Tank Abbott is your fucking world champ or some shit. But they had on All In, they had Danielson defended his title against fucking Jack Perry, who looks like he should never be in a world title picture. He just doesn't look the part. The guy takes his shirt off, and I'm like, why do I have more definition than you? And I'm fat. It's like I look more of a man than you do. It's wild. But after the match, which Danielson obviously wins, the Blackpool Combat Club turns on him, and they put a plastic bag over his head and they try to suffocate him on TV.
Oh, that's tough to do. That's really tough. I understand. You can push an envelope, but
I look at that and I go back to when the Nexus debuted. Right. When they showed up and they tore up the ring and beat the shit out of everybody. Danielson got fired for choking Justin Roberts with his tie and having that on TV because they're like, whoa, this is fucking bad optics. You can't have this. He got fired for that. And then they brought him back by popular demand or just to kind of appease the networks to that deal. And it's just weird that he's involved in something like this again. It's like, dude, you should know what the repercussions of this are going to be. I mean, Tony isn't going to fire anybody because he doesn't give a shit, but you're going to give a shit if your sponsors don't want to promote your product anymore. If, I mean, what was it, a couple of years ago when they had that piece of shit Nick Gage on, and he had the pizza cutter and he's cutting into Jericho's head while they're doing picture in picture with Domino's Pizza, and Domino's is like, yeah, we're not doing this anymore. We're pulling our sponsorship. Like, it isn't going to look. I'm like, that's the first thing it's going to look. And the fact that like AW tweets like, oh, we're not going to re-air this footage because of the gravity of it. Well, you fucking put it on your TV. You yourself cannot re-air that footage, but it's 2024. It's going to be hard to miss it. It's going to be everywhere.
I mean,
and they had their next, not to cut you off, Chris.
No, that's all right.
They had their main event match, which was a lights out cage match. Get hat on a hat. I'm sounding like Cornette at this point. With Adam Page and Swerve Strickland for the 400,000th time, because this is a feud that will never end. This should have been for the belt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This should have been for the belt. They should have kept the belt on Swerve. You didn't need to have the retirement angle with Danielson, especially now since Danielson's going to be out because he was just attempted murdered. So he's going to be out anyway. It's like, well, then what was the point of him winning the fucking title?
Yep.
Like, I agree. It doesn't, as Chris, to quote you, make it make sense.
Yeah,
That's what you always say. But like during that match, it was as brutal could be. I mean, hearkening way back to ECW, and it was cool for that time. But now that we're 2024, I know a lot of people like to pull the veil back, like, oh, this happened out here and no one complained. We didn't know the repercussions of all of these moves and all of these chair shots. We didn't know about those in the 90s.
Right.
It wasn't until people started doing the CTE investigation, especially with Chris Benoit, he had a brain of a 108-year-old man, then they're like, all right, let's ease back on shots to the head. And Adam Page hits Swerve with this chair shot that was apparently so fucking bad it broke the chair.
Am I assuming the chair was gimmicked?
That's what fucking Sean Ross Sapp said, but I feel like he'll say anything to defend AEW. But it probably was. It probably was, because chairs don't just break like that. And I've watched enough ECW chair shots, especially the one that Mikey Whipwreck did on Mick Foley, which is still the greatest chair shot of all time, with a non-gimmick chair. I thought Mick was fucking dead.
I agree.
Like, that sound, when I hear that, my teeth fucking rattle. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. And that's like a 30-year-old clip at this point. But he hits him with that, and then at one point in the match, he pulls out like a hypodermic needle and like stabs Swerve in the mouth and like injects him.
Yeah,
like what are we even doing at this point? Are you trying to fuck your TV deal, Tony?
So I heard a rumor that somebody within AEW or somebody within WWE said that was pretty much concrete proof that the inmates run the asylum there. Do you believe, regardless of what I feel about Tony Khan, which I don't really have many feelings at all for the guy, but nonetheless, do you think that would have been something that he would have been on board with? Or do you think that's guys going into business for themselves?
No, I feel like Tony can be talked into anything by those fucking jackals. And considering Adam Page is in tight with the Bucks, who are basically who have been in Tony's ear since the inception, there's no way he didn't know that was coming.
Yeah.
At all. They're like, hey, Tony, no. They're like, Tony, look, don't worry. It'll be perfectly safe. There's nothing in it. He's not going to get hurt. Like, don't worry. It was probably something like that. And Tony's like, yeah, all right, fine, do it. Tony's not thinking about his sponsors, his TV deal, if WB doesn't want to keep them, if somebody else is going to want to take them. But they're going to but other companies are going to look at shit like that and they're going to have their reservations. Like, why should we take this promotion?
Yeah.
You have diminishing ratings. You have low attendance numbers. Why, if say, for example, if I'm an executive at Universal, at NBC Universal, if I'm looking at a company that's pretty much losing money and ratings, why would
Mhm.
I want to invest money into that if this is the shit that they're going to do every week that's going to get controversy? I know Eric Bischoff famously said controversy creates cash. This isn't really controversy. This is just these guys are doing whatever they can, and it doesn't look good optics
Mhm.
wise.
I agree.
If you're a big uh, like company like Frito-Lay, like, we see Doritos and Lay's commercial all over the place. You're going to want to associate with that kind of company that's doing attempted murder on TV. And I get and I get it. WWE has done that in the past,
Yeah.
but there's a difference between Vince McMahon getting into a limo and it's clearly like not him in the limo
Right.
and it blowing up. There's a difference to a stuntman getting hit by a car and having have the camera pan back and that's Stone Cold Steve Austin, but we know that wasn't Austin that got hit. Same thing with Triple H in the car. We're well aware that that was a safe spot.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. Vince McMahon is a fucking creep and an asshole, but he's not going to murder somebody for ratings' sake.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, he wouldn't pay anybody health care and he's a jerk off and a half, but especially everything that happened with Owen Hart.
Right.
And that's another thing. This is a company that has an Owen Hart tournament.
Yes.
Martha Hart shows up for that.
Mhm.
And you got an attempted murder going on TV. What if that went wrong?
Mhm.
And concerning the people involved and how unprofessional most of them are, what if that went wrong?
Yeah.
What if Adam Page missed with that syringe and actually stabbed Swerve in the fucking mouth?
Yeah. I agree. I don't know why Daniel Bryan is doing things like that. I don't understand. He's just somebody who doesn't need. It's like when Edge goes to AEW, he thinks it's cool to just jump off the top rope and
That's the
start
thing.
doing things off the top of a cage. Like,
But
dude,
that
like
also,
I don't know why you're doing this stuff.
well, that takes me back to something that that Dean says, where he goes, you know what? I don't feel bad for them. This was the decision that they made.
I
You
agree.
decided to not re-sign and go and play with your friends.
Mhm.
And like this is this is your bed, and now you have to lie in it. There's no reason why 50-year-old Edge should be jumping off of cages when he didn't even do that originally. I think he stopped doing that when he broke his fucking neck spearing Jeff Hardy off of the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna go do it again. What did you think was gonna happen, Edge? Your bones don't get stronger as you age.
Right.
You're not Logan.
No.
They're not reinforced adamantium, sir.
Right.
You may be Canadian, but
that's funny.
It's a wild scenario, and I know like the AW stands are defending it left, right, sideways. I mean,
I just don't know how you can. I don't get it.
I would probably defend it if it was 1998.
Yeah, if it was 1998, it would have been cutting edge.
And we didn't know the health risks that were going to show up later on.
Right.
Then I'd be like, it was entertaining. I look at it now and I'm like, did someone's career just get shortened?
Right.
I mean, it's different when you look at it now through like the eyes of the future. And like I get like Tony Khan has this love for like 90s wrestling and like New Japan death matches and the Attitude Era, but dude, it doesn't translate to 2024.
No, it doesn't. Just to kind of give you an update, we just went about 25 minutes on that. AEW Rampage last week on Friday, 233,000 viewers. AEW Collision, 157,000.
So they got more viewers for Rampage, which went on at 10.
Yeah.
Because it didn't go head to head with SmackDown.
Yeah. And then SmackDown competing against the NFL did just about a 1.8.
Oh, 1.8 against the NFL. That's why that's commendable. Again,
it's commendable.
Going against week 1 NFL. Like I don't expect Raw to have a big rating this week because it's going against the first Monday Night Football.
It's going to get killed. Yeah, I mean
it's going against the 49ers and
it's going against the NFL. Two games
and stupid ass Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it's going up against 2 NFL games. Like I'm sorry, there's not.
I thought it was just
anymore.
one. I thought it was just.
I looked at the wrong thing. One game tonight, but still, you're going up against Monday Night Football on the first week of the season. I fully expect Raw to be right around a 1.4. or so, 1.5 maybe. So
I'd be
the optics are gonna look bad.
I'd be surprised if it's like 1.7, 1.8. But Raw's been Raw's been hitting that 2 mark lately. I'm not
That's
trying
true.
to talk it
Yeah.
up because I understand it's football season. I know what the numbers are going to be. But
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, so we're gonna move forward here and actually talk about what we're here for, which is the Monday Night Wars. And we're talking Monday Night Raw and Monday Nitro from September 11th, 1995.
Oh, no.
At this time, both towers, that be the Twin and Titan towers, were both standing at the same time. Obviously, the world would really change 6 years later. But we are here. Monday Night Raw is live from the Canton Civic Center in Canton, Ohio. Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler are your commentators. Over on the other side,
underrated
the other
commentary
channel,
team. Underrated commentary
I agree.
team.
On the other side, live from Miami, Florida, Eric Bischoff, Steve Mongo McMichael, and Bobby the Brain Heenan are doing commentary. Bischoff announces that Vader is AWOL because he has not filed proper documents. So now Hulk Hogan's team is one man down going into Fall Brawl. Over on the other side, we get hype videos of Shawn Michaels versus Sid, rest in peace, for the Intercontinental title, and British Bulldog versus Razor Ramon. This show also featured a new opening segment that we saw wrestlers fighting on top of Titan Towers with a mock crowd. I actually thought that was pretty cool.
I like that. I always like that. I didn't really like the song that played, but it was a cool visual, like Shawn dancing on top of tower, and then like jumping off into the ring. Like Diesel's in there, Yoko's in there, probably Tatanka. Goldust is like off to the side being a fucking creep, and the Monday Night Raw logo is flashing over his face.
Yeah. So, you know, what were you watching? Were you watching Monday Night Raw here in 1995?
95, I was probably Raw.
Yeah, I was definitely
it's hard to remember that. It's hard to remember that far back, but probably Raw. I did switch over to WCW at one point because my grandfather's watched WCW, because he liked the older wrestlers.
Yeah,
because he watched in the 80s when all of them were popular.
All right, so let's kind of just go, I guess, match by match what we got going on here and whatever was happening. We'll start with the WWF. The very first match on Monday Night Raw here was Razor Ramon versus the British Bulldog with Jim Cornette. The match goes 7 minutes and 4 seconds. Ends in a DQ in the favor of the British Bulldog. What was your thoughts on this? I thought it had a chance to be good, but I was just very disappointed in this.
I was I guess kind of surprised. I'm like, oh, all right, we got Razor Ramon and the British Bulldog. Like, this is a main event on pay-per-view at any at any given time at this point in time, especially Intercontinental title.
Right.
This is a banger and a half. And it was and you got two great workers in, I'm gonna call him Scott Hall and Davey Boy.
Right.
And then as the match goes on, here comes Dean Douglas. I'm like, fucking Dean Douglas. Like,
yeah.
Someone why did, because then it's like, oh yeah, like he had a little scuffle with Razor at SummerSlam because I believe at that SummerSlam, every time they had a match, they would cut back to Dean Douglas and he would grade the match. Yeah. And he gave Razor like a bad grade because he lost the ladder match to Shawn.
Correct.
And Razor went in the back and like smacked him in the mouth like a fucking child. So Dean Douglas interferes, but then the 1, 2, 3 kid comes down, then he interferes. Now, like the ref gets knocked out, and the ref calls for the bell because he sees the 1, 2, 3 kid in favor of Bulldog. But when 1, 2, 3 kid came off the top, he hit Razor. So in theory and technically, by DQ, your winner should be Razor, right? Because he's the one that gets hit. The referee sees it, but the referee's like, no, he's in cahoots. So it's So he ends up 1, 2, 3 kid ends up ruining the match for Razor, which leads to them having a match like the following week. We get a setup for a match for next week.
Yep.
So storyline stuff, good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, the action wasn't great. but because I did expect more in 1995 out of Bulldog and Razor, because on Monday Night
I don't know why
Raw.
you're expecting more in 1995.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess looking back, I always looked at Razor and Bulldog together could be a pretty fun match to watch. I mean, these are two dudes in their prime. I just felt like they were going through the motions, really. I thought that the push on commentary, they were trying to push Douglas, how he outsmarted Kid and Razor, the 1-2-3 Kid, presumably. But, it was what it was. And I just, the whole presentation make, 1-2-3 Kid and Razor look like losers as, Bulldog beats them down afterwards. Even Cornette was getting in on the action. Yeah. I just wasn't a big fan there. Yeah. First match over on the other side, what the world was watching. Alex Wright beat Sabu via a reverse decision in just under 4 minutes. What was your thoughts on the debut of Sabu in WCW?
I look at the debut of Sabu in WCW, and I'm like, he's doing his greatest hits from anything I've ever seen with Sabu. Here the tables in the 90s were just looked fucking bad. I'm like, nah, this looks like it's gonna hurt when you go through it. Like, this looks like, this is made from a fucking pallet and metal fucking stakes for legs. And Alex Wright, this is the time where Alex Wright was called this Wunder Kid. Dean's gonna fucking slaughter me because I can't speak German. But and he comes out and he's dancing. I'm like, I love Alex Wright. Love Alex Wright. He could still be wrestling now.
So, by the way, it just came out that from beginning October 7th, Monday Night Raw will be a 2-hour show for the rest of the year.
And SmackDown is going to be 3 hours.
I think just for the one night, right?
Just is it just the one night? Because I was worried
it's just
that
Friday.
It was going to be permanent. All right, okay. Listen, if you're gonna be, unless you're gonna be 3 hours of my tribal chief, then I'm not gonna. Maybe give me, and maybe that last hour you can give me Bailey and Tiffy time, and Nia Jax eating a whole pizza. Fine with that.
Yeah. Stop with the Nia Jax slander. How dare you?
Oh yeah, how dare I, Mister?
We're a family-friendly show, sir.
Mister, she needs to stop.
Not eating, but she needs to stop wrestling.
I don't know how they haven't put her in the bloodline yet. Honestly,
that's a good point. Her and Samoa Joe are the outliers. They're not part of the family.
Joey Samoa isn't part of the Anoa'i family. I think Nia Jax is. She is in the tree. Didn't you not look at the tree when The Rock pointed at it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Damn.
You clearly missed the DeFrancesco branch.
Clearly. After a commercial break, we get an ad for next week's Yokozuna and Owen Hart versus Men on a Mission. God, this is 1995.
Yeah, it's 1995, baby.
This is
King Mabel and Sir Mo.
And it's crazy because in the ad, they're acting as if Gorilla Monsoon is giving the people what they want with this. This is
Gorilla Monsoon has nothing to do with this, and it shows.
Correct. Next match on Raw is the Smoking Guns versus, you guessed it, Radford and the Brooklyn Brawler.
You guessed it.
We get an ad. Does this date the world?
Former champs. Of nothing.
We get a plug for Dean Douglas appearing on an AOL chat Tuesday night. We also see that Radford has been downgraded to an enhancement talent by this point.
He was always an enhancement talent.
How dare you? They got 2 minutes and 47 seconds of this match, my friend.
The future Louis Spicolli.
What was your thoughts on this little quickie here on Raw?
That was a squash match.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that Billy Gunn, he ain't lost his fucking step in 30 goddamn years.
He's on the best stuff known to man.
I don't know what he's on, but give me a bucket.
Give you a bucket.
Give me a fucking bucket, man. Billy Gunn's got that good juice.
So here's the first confusing part of the evening, and it happens over on Monday Nitro, where the big boys play. No. Gene Okerlund interviews Ric Flair. Makes total sense. That's fine.
Sure. Why not?
Recaps his feud with Arn Anderson. Makes sense. Build up to Fall Brawl.
Yeah, why not?
Out of nowhere, Lex Luger comes to the ring, and Flair, like, kind of, puffs up his ass and says nice things about him. And Luger just says, nothing changes, Rick, and then leaves. What was the point of Lex Luger showing up and then just leaving?
Do you see why I told you? I see where Tony Khan got his inspiration for booking Dynamite from these early episodes of Nitro. These early episodes of Nitro were just a goddamn free-for-all. There was no point. I have no idea why Lex came out. Lex eventually joins Team Hogan to face the Dungeon of Doom. So why is Flair even in that goddamn picture? Flair doesn't even have the U.S. title, so he can't be like, I want your U.S. title. Like, nothing makes sense. And the Horsemen aren't even together.
I'm watching. And he walks in the ring. He's naked, of course. For some reason, he's like Randy Orton. He just shows up in his gear to a promo, to anything. He's just there.
Randy is always prepared. You never know when an RKO is going to come out of nowhere.
That's true.
The torture rack is not coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, Luger just walks in the ring. He smiles at what Flair's pumping him up, talking about, and then he just leaves. It served zero purpose for absolutely anything.
It got the crowd hyped for Lex Luger. Are you dumb?
I guess.
Are you Lex Luger? Because Lex should never hold a microphone.
Yeah, I just didn't understand.
Every time Lex does a promo, it's like the first time a toddler is learning how to talk.
Yeah. Next match here for Nitro is a United States Championship match. Sting, who comes in as the incumbent champion, defeats VK Wall Street.
He changed his name after a week.
1 week, baby. He was Michael Wall Street. Now he's Vincent Kennedy Wall Street.
And then they even asked that. They're like, hey, why did he change his name? And then Bischoff's like, I don't know. Ask him.
That's so funny.
Thanks, boss.
Yeah. He after about 4 minutes and 12 seconds.
Which that's clearly a shot. That's a shots fired.
It is. You are right.
Shots fired.
Look, I actually thought VK Wall Street, IRS, whatever. I thought he was a pretty decent worker.
Listen, I got nothing but respect for Mike Rotunda and the ropes.
Me too.
That dude will give you a fucking solid match. He's a safe worker, and he's a ring general before there was a ring general, before that was even a term.
Yeah, and I will say this is just my I guess anality of certain things, or an OCD of watching certain stuff. Did you notice that like every 3 seconds of the match, Rotunda was just yanking on his tights and just fixing his tights nonstop?
I mean, I also never remember him wearing a singlet like that.
That might have been the last time, I bet. I have to go check on that.
Maybe it honestly looks like it was made at home.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, this is good enough. Let's use this.
This is good enough.
But also during this match, or before this match, we get the very first instance of Eric Bischoff spoiling Raw.
That's literally what was my next sentence.
Hey, look at that. We're right there.
I know. Bischoff fires a famous shot for the first time at the WWF's taped Monday Night Raw, telling fans it's an old show, and Shawn Michaels beat the big guy, who he would be later, paying some serious money to, with a super kick that would not win a green belt at your local YMCA.
But it will win you the WWF title. And
That's
two
hilarious.
Hall of Fame inductions.
I know.
You asked Shelton Benjamin about that super kick.
Oh yes, definitely.
He'll tell you a fucking story. Once he's done counting his teeth.
Right. On the other side, Monday Night Raw, a new Goldust vignette. He's wearing a gold top hat while standing in the dark overlooking the city.
Damn
He
right
talks
it
about the
was.
creatures of the night and how they follow the footsteps of their leader, the Undertaker. Dude, I thought this was really good. Like, really good. To be honest,
Goldust promos when he was quoting movies, I'm like, give me more of that, like, because that's the whole gimmick of Goldust.
Yeah.
He is basically supposed to look like an Oscar.
Yeah,
that was the whole point,
Little spoiler alert for everybody, because we'll talk about it at the end, and I'll say it again. This was my favorite spot of Monday Night Raw. This was my favorite thing about this Raw. What was this promo? Because I thought it was so well done. It just continued to elevate that character. And of course, Goldust using this promo to go after the creatures of the night and the Undertaker just made so much sense. And I loved it. I really loved it for 1995.
I mean, he quoted Night of the Living Dead.
Yep.
Which the horror nerd in me was like, yes, give me more.
That's right.
Quote another one.
That's right. Next match is another barn burner from Monday Night Raw. Dr. Isaac Yankem DDS versus Scott Taylor.
If they didn't say Scott Taylor, I would have assumed that was Sparky Pluck.
Yeah, Yankem, Glenn Jacobs, Kane, later became Kane.
He became Fake Diesel first.
That's true. That's true. He became Fake Diesel first. Got to win it to 2 minutes and 14 seconds. What was your thoughts on Dr. Isaac Yankem DDS?
It was so weird seeing him use the DDT as a finisher, which he called the DDS. It's like, well, it's just a DDT, but okay. Right. But it was good to see that even in 95, a DDT was still a finishing move.
Yeah.
It ain't that anymore unless Raven's doing it.
Right. And I will say, look, I know Kane hates even discussing Isaac Yankem. I know, I guess he's just so embarrassed about it or just upset that it was even a thing. I mean, the dude comes in here at a top spot against Bret the Hitman Hart. Yeah. That's not, and he's working with Jerry the King Lawler. That's not the worst gig in the world. It's not the red fucking rooster.
And let me tell you, the King is not just a gimmick. Jerry Lawler's the fucking king of Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
You ask anybody in the business, they'll fucking tell you. Jerry Lawler owns Memphis. Still owns Memphis. That's his town.
And let's get to a Todd Pettengill, which I loved these back in the day.
Oh, man.
Let's get into
good old Todd.
What's happening with Todd Pettengill. And boy, does this, date what we're watching now. He
cracks
a joke. He cracks a joke about NBC moving Mad About You to Sunday nights, since I guess, they are pissed at the network about canceling the WrestleMania special at the last minute during the summer.
I guess they have faith in that show. That's like, what?
It was a topical joke at the time, but still obviously big time out of spite there.
Yeah. And also it's like, Mad About You was on for 8 years. So yeah, Todd.
We learned that WWF interim president Gorilla Monsoon put in a stipulation that a DQ or count out would cause the loser to surrender the belt or belts. Also Savio Vega versus Waylon Mercy was added to the pay-per-view.
Man.
Get out there and spend that money, ladies and gentlemen. As you remember from the Ross report on Action Zone,
great gimmick.
He mentioned rumors of Jim Cornette telling his men to get counted out or DQ'd if they were in trouble to keep the titles. Interesting match added, as you'd figure Mercy would get the win with all the attention, his character had been receiving. But, Savio at this time was, a pretty good worker. I mean, Austin historically has said Savio was an incredible guy to work with. So pretty...
It looks like when Savio shows up now, every now and then, that dude gets a fucking pop.
Yeah,
it's Savio Vega.
And over on Nitro, we get to a next match. We actually get to a pretty decent one. You get a big name here. The big name being Scott Norton going up against some dude named Randy Savage.
Never hear from him again. Right?
Scott Norton loses after getting a flying elbow drops after 5 minutes and 35 seconds. This match was made on the first Monday Nitro when we saw this weird, dumb appearance by Scott Norton on Nitro, but nonetheless, it happened. I will say, dude, pretty fun match, actually. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. because of Randy.
That's correct. Yeah. So this, I actually thought this was a pretty decent match.
Some of the booking for this show was kind of confusing to me. We'll talk about when we get to the end, but there's a lot of shit that I was like, this doesn't really make any sense. But
Yeah.
we'll get to that at the end, just so I don't have to like repeat myself later.
I understand.
Yeah.
Coming up now, WCW Championship match. Hulk Hogan beats Lex Luger via disqualification after 5.5 minutes because of the Dungeon of Doom interference.
What a weird fucking match this was.
Yeah.
And I don't mean the Dungeon of Doom showing up.
Right.
Because Luger got him up in the rack. The crowd's fucking hot because the Hulkamania doesn't have the clout in 94 that I had in 80 or 95 that I had in 85.
Nope.
So it's, like the crowd's hot for it. And like, I remember any other time Lex would have somebody up in the rack and they would just call the bell. Like, all right, like done. Like, but like Hogan's in the rack and he's like flailing around like anybody else and they're not calling the bell. I'm still like, I'm like, this feels like a Hogan call.
Yeah.
And they do like the arm thing, the 3 times with the drop. And then Hogan's arm does drop. And Lex drops him, but then when Hogan hits the mat, he shoots his arm up as if he's safe. It's like, nah, dude. Like, you're out.
Yeah.
But then, like, the Dungeon of Doom show up, and it's a whole fucking thing. It just doesn't make any sense.
I know. It was just, look, the only thing I really noticed about this match was that Bischoff was taking more shots fired, another shots fired edition of this show. To WWF, he noting that Lex Luger is not used to facing someone of Hogan's caliber, and that the current WWF champion Diesel never made it past mid-card level on WCW. Look, whatever. Like, I get what he's doing, and you look back in 1995, that was really cool what he was doing. It was cutting edge. He was doing whatever it took from a business perspective. But you look back at it now, and it's like, dude, it's so petty. Like, just so petty.
Even like Mongo took some shots too, because he was like, oh, like the other show is named after some uncooked eggs. We got fresh eggs over here. And then he called the WF like the Bush Leagues. It's like,
yeah,
dude, they're the bigger company. Like, you guys, I mean, honestly, at this point in the 90s, you haven't hit the boom yet. Both companies are basically Bush League at this point in the mid 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
There was just no real draw to either show.
Right. I for sure.
I mean, the WCW had Hogan, but the popularity was not where it was like 5 years prior. It just wasn't there.
In this match, after trading some, obviously basic, typical Luger and Hogan stuff, Luger puts Hogan in a torture rack. Hogan's hand does not drop 3 times, as George alluded to. And of course, the same shit, different Monday. Cue the Hogan comeback, the leg drop, but the Dungeon of Doom does interfere before Luger's shoulders can be counted. But look, this was totally rushed. I guess that, they were really up against the end of the show. But why give again? This is rhetorical, guys. 30 years later, this is rhetorical. So I know the reason why now, obviously, but why give away a big match when this could have been Lex Luger's like first really big match in the company on a pay-per-view against Hulk Hogan? I mean, why give it away on free television? But obviously we know why.
Christopher, I got a little bit of breaking news, and I'm going to do this on air because I'm so mad that we're recording and I missed this live.
Okay.
Bret came out and like talked to the crowd. Gunther comes out, tells Bret he will always be a close second to his favorite wrestler, Bill Goldberg.
There's no doubt that was agreed upon between the two guys.
My man Gunther. Give him a fucking 5-year reign.
Oh, that's hilarious. I can't wait to see that. What a rub, though, for Gunther. Good for him.
Yeah. My buddy Matt sent me a message on Instagram. He's like, yo, Gunther's hilarious. And I was like, oh, let me see what I missed. So I just looked it up and I'm like, oh yeah, give me more.
After the bell, the Dungeon of Doom swarm the ring to attack Hogan, but Sting and Randy Savage come to his aid, and the babyfaces once again turn back the challenge of the Dungeon of Doom. When we return from a commercial break, Gene Okerlund's in the ring with Hogan, Savage, Sting, and Luger. Luger is asked by Hogan and Savage why the Dungeon of Doom didn't touch him. But Sting comes to his aid, like always, and makes the case for Luger to be on the team. Savage is just not too happy or keen on that idea, and so Dungeon of Doom also didn't touch Sting or Jimmy Hart, both of whom become increasingly defensive. That the belief is that they're working with the Dungeon of Doom. With Sting and Savage deadlock, Hogan breaks the tie, putting in Luger on the team, and Luger accepting a spot in return for a future title shot. And we go off the air with a promo. So that works.
Sure, why not?
Yep. Let's go to the other side here for the main event of Monday Night Raw. It's Sid. It's a WWF Intercontinental Championship title match. We got Sid versus the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, who is the Intercontinental Champion. This match, goes about 7 minutes and 20 seconds or so. What did you think about this one here?
Love Sid. I'm disappointed they didn't put a microphone in his hand.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a standard fair match. I didn't think Sid was going to win. I mean, I know Sid was never Intercontinental Champion, so that kind of helps my mentality. But even when I watch the match, I forget a lot of what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, maybe there was like a rain that I missed or something. But like, I didn't think Shawn was going to lose this match at all. I do like that it took multiple kicks to kind of keep Sid down.
Right.
To put Sid over as the bigger, stronger.
Yeah. I mean, it took 2 super kicks to get the win for HBK. Yeah.
Which in the 90s was unheard of.
For sure. Oh, absolutely.
You hit your finisher once, then that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike now, where you got to hit it 5 times, and Cody hits the 3 crossroads while not letting go.
Yeah.
To beat anybody.
Yeah. I thought it was a pretty good match. A little bit, formulaic, as they say. But look, Sid's involved. There's really, you can't have this catch as catch can style match with Sid, but you could tell a story. And that's what HBK was so good at, no matter who the opponent was telling that story. Shawn gets the win, hypes up, it was a very hyped up match for Raw here. And we'll go on into In Your House and likely find a new challenger as long as, he retains the title. This loss also sees Sid slide further down the card, and how the $1 Million Corporation is nothing more, than a tired stale act stable at this point. So, then after this, the In Your House ad airs. We head backstage and we see Shawn celebrate with Diesel. Doc Hendricks interrupts to ask them about the triple header at In Your House. Shawn talks about they will beat Owen and Yokozuna and then move on to bigger and better things, as Diesel says, no T, only are they 2 dudes with attitudes, but they will also be 2 chaps with all the straps.
Nash wrote that himself.
Nash had to have wrote that. Shawn would not have come up with something that clever.
Not 1995, Shawn.
No. So, final thoughts on both shows. Let's start with Monday Night Raw, George.
Very kind of formulaic, but we had bigger names involved. The fact that we didn't have the Raw before on the previous week kind of hurt, because as you go into this, you're trying to remember the storylines from SummerSlam, which was at this point 2 weeks prior. So you have to kind of do a little bit of gymnastics and we kind of remember, like this was going on, this happened. Right. So they did their best to try to remind you what happened prior in a match that's set up, but they're also trying to set up In Your House, which is like the next week. So it's
right.
It's another point where like they were kind of like peppering these In Your Houses in, but they really weren't spaced out. Seeing that now, and it's not working for the other company either. It didn't really work for them either, because you have your big SummerSlam, which is one of the big, at this point, the big 5. It's one of the big name pay-per-views, and then like this is where they start doing the In Your House is like each month, but they didn't quite get their spacing on how long it was going to take to build these feuds. I mean, they immediately just put all the champions in one match, all the belts on the line.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
At SummerSlam, Shawn beats Razor and Diesel beats Mabel. So I'm not sure how that translates into facing Owen and Yokozuna for the tag titles.
Yeah,
and neither one of them were on the show either.
No, not at all. No. Yeah, I thought the show itself was just it was focused. They hit what they wanted to hit, and they focused on that main event, which was pretty decent. I thought
Raw's also 2.5 years in, so they have a formula kind of locked in as to how to do these shows.
Right. Yeah, it looked. I thought the new production helped refresh the show. I thought that new, as Bruce Pritchard says, the new paint of coat. It's really good stuff. But you get the new coat of paint. They're not able to mask the fact that this promotion is struggling. You wouldn't know that, but that was the thing about WWF, even in 1995, 93, 94, 95, even early parts of 96. That's what I thought was so much, far superior than Monday Nitro at the time, was the production value. Yeah. Even Monday Nitro still looked dark and dungy. But WWF was always the bright lights. It made it look like they're on top of the world. And obviously we know financially at this time, they just weren't. And they were struggling with top acts. They didn't even have mid-card depth at the time. Just a lot of bad gimmicks. With this show being taped more than 2 weeks prior, it led to WCW again, giving them that open door to do what Bischoff did, which is make all those remarks on commentary, giving away the result of Shawn versus Sid before it even took place, and how, the current WWF champion, Diesel, wasn't even worthy of being a mid-card status in WCW.
But it's so weird that they took that shot the very first time they went head to head.
I know. It's ballsy. You got to give it to Bischoff. It's
because I didn't also realize that the shots were coming that early. That he was giving away the spoilers that like the very first week they go head to head. I didn't realize he was giving them away. I thought this was like later on when they're really trying to kind of dig in. But
yeah. It's just it was just surprising to see the shots. And then they talk about Bischoff brings up how Luger wanted to lead the WWF and go where the big boys play and where there's better competition. And I will say, and if you look at the rosters, it's very clear the better competition was in WCW. It's very clear of that. So it's just a matter of how quick is WCW going to grow. In terms of ratings here, the 9/11 episodes were damn near tied up. Raw edged out Nitro with a 2.5 to the 2.4 for Nitro. But boy, it was pretty crazy. I mean, it was right there neck and neck, just like that. So what was your thoughts on the other side of Monday Nitro?
The thing that confused me about Nitro, well, not really confused me, but it was the booking that was kind of odd because the previous week we get this promo from BK Wall Street. We get this promo about how he's coming to WCW, and he's here to like play with the big boys, and he's not here for the new generation. He's basically announcing his arrival in WCW. Scott Norton shows up, through the crowd, and he's demanding, and he wants a match, and and he's like this big badass who's going to come storming in, and both of these guys lose when they come in.
Yeah.
So how does that really help their momentum? And I don't want to hear the shit. Oh, well, he was in there with Sting, for the U.S. title. Of course, I could put the U.S. title on Wall Street. They didn't need to have a U.S. title. They could have just did what they did with Sabu. But Sabu even lost his debut, technically, to do a reverse decision. So the three guys that were hyped up the previous week, Sabu, Scott Norton, and BK Wall Street. And all three of them lose when they show up. How does that look to a fan? When you're looking, you're like, you're hyped up. You're like, oh, IRS. Like I saw him. It's like, oh, I can't wait to see him kick ass over in WCW. And he loses to Sting in a U.S. title match.
Right. I agree. And, also in this match, you're trying to build up your top heel, faction in the entire company at this point, and it's just another way at the end of this show where the Dungeon of Doom kind of look weak. They look like idiots
Yeah.
because they're forced to run away because the power of Hulkamania and its friends. And they didn't even try to beat up Scott Norton when Norton got in the Shark's face. I can't even
But
believe
like,
that was even a sentence, but the
but like,
fact that happened.
I'm looking at, I'm looking at like the last 2 weeks of Nitro, and they're talking about, this is where the big boys play.
Right.
And if all you're seeing is Nitro, then the only wrestlers that you have seen so far are Hogan, Luger, Sting, Macho Man, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson,
Mm-hmm.
Sabu, Wall Street, Scott Norton, Alex Wright, who basically looked like a jobber and then
Yep.
kind of getting a win,
Yep.
and like Big Bubba.
Right.
So, like, I'm seeing 10 people.
10.
Like I thought this were
10.
like I thought this is where like the big boys play,
Right.
but I saw almost all of these guys last week.
Yep.
With the exception of Sabu and Alex Wright, we saw all of these guys the previous week.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
the Dungeon of Doom just kind of kept running in and out. So
Yeah.
they're not even having a match, but it's the same thing with Dungeon of Doom. And then they announced Vader, Vader didn't sign papers in the right spot, so he's out of the match. Now, was that done because Vader was leaving WCW?
Yes. Because this is late 95.
And he shows up at the Royal Rumble in 96.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean, I would have just kept Vader on at that point.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
I get, Luger's in, you want to like build him up. He's a new baby face, but he's still going to be dwarfed by Hogan anyway. So how big is he really going to get?
Right. All right. So we're at the end of this year. So between, what was your favorite moment of both shows?
My favorite moment of Raw was, I really like the Razor Bulldog match, even though it had some Gaga in it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing two guys that I can't see anymore.
You're right.
At the prime.
Yeah.
And just having a simple, by the numbers match on Monday Night Raw.
Yep.
But I like that. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah. And I'm always down for a Razor Ramon entrance. And
over in WCW, I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot to like because a lot of this I saw the previous week.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to shit on them because because as this goes on, Nitro's going to get all the fucking praise in the world going up against Raw, like well into like 98.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but at the same time, I can't give them too much fault because they're trying to find their footing.
For sure.
They're trying to figure out what they want to do or what they want to be as a show. And the only show they really have to go off of is WCW Saturday Night, which is basically what Nitro is. It's just matches, a promo here or there, hype up a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And like you get like a big name in your main event.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're still trying to kind of get their footing to a point. I mean, Bischoff taking the shots. I mean, it's ballsy for 95. I mean, I look at it now and I kind of roll my eyes with it, but whatever you're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't think Solo is going to fight today because he's not on Raw. He's a SmackDown star.
That's correct. We're here to give you information. Yeah, my favorite moment of Nitro is probably Sting versus VK Wall Street. Again, I always enjoyed watching Sting, and I thought Mike Rotunda was, as always, had his working boots on, and I always enjoyed watching his matches. And again, it's Sting. He was really the only reason I ever watched WCW at all from like 95 through 2001. It was always just to see what Sting was doing. So also, I mean, I did also a close second, I guess you could say 1B would have been Scott Norton and Randy Savage. I thought that was actually a really good television live TV match. That was good stuff.
But then like Norton comes in and he's supposed to be like this kind of monster heel.
Yeah. And
then they throw him with Ice Train and make him and put him in a tag team.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll shred that down.
I don't think Scott Norton ever really. I mean, I'm not the biggest Scott Norton fan in the world, but if he's supposed to come in as monster heel, he needs a singles run, winning matches. You can't have him come in and job out to the Macho Man right away, because then what kind of momentum is he going to have?
Agreed.
Same thing with Wall Street. I mean,
Right.
basically, Wall Street made his debut. He comes in, he loses Sting. This dude languished in mid-card fucking hell
Yeah.
in that company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to the point that he joined NWO and then was kicked out the same night.
I agree. All right, we're here at the end. What was the better show, Monday Night Raw or Monday Nitro, George?
My vote was for Monday Night Raw.
That is also my vote. Not by much, but that's my vote. I think in my opinion, and I said this already before, like I said, spoiler, I think the promo by Goldust to me put Raw over the top there. Mm-hmm. I thought it was such a great promo.
Both shows had a lot to offer.
Yes.
Like, they weren't good. Like, these are not good shows. No, at all. No. By any stretch.
Nope.
They're gonna get better.
Yes.
We know they're gonna get better.
Yeah.
But in 1995, we didn't know they were gonna get better.
Yeah.
We just watched them because it was all we had.
We're gonna start seeing it the next few weeks. The ratings just continuously just go up, up, up. It's gonna be a lot of fun to cover. Next week, Raw does decisively take care of Nitro in the ratings. We're gonna talk about that next week and see, maybe did the ratings not tell the whole story? What was the better show? That's why we're doing this every single week. Cannot wait to talk about next week's show. Again, this is the War Room. We are recapping and rewatching each and every week in order Monday Nitro and Monday Night Raw. And we're here to talk about it every week. Head over to SeatGeek.com right now. Use our code Ring the Bell for $20 off your very first ticket purchase. If you're watching this live on YouTube right now, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for show notifications. George, what's coming up this week on the Multiverse Movie Podcast that you're doing?
Well, the Multiverse, when we come back, Dean is currently right now at the 49ers game.
Yes.
In San Francisco.
Yep.
But I believe when he comes back, I think we're going to do the review for the newly released Beetlejuice, the long-awaited sequel to the fan favorite movie. Which I enjoyed it. I know Dean enjoyed it. A lot of people I know were like, it could be a lot to be desired. It's like, well, I'm not sure what you were expecting.
Yes.
But I think they were expecting more of what the first movie was. But this would have been the natural progression. So I don't have an issue. I think a couple of things were rushed, but it doesn't really take away too much from the entire movie because I got what I wanted, which is Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice.
And look, hey, the results are pretty much in that $145 million for a sequel that's, 36 years old?
Yeah. Weird. Warner Brothers making money. I don't understand it. You don't understand it.
I don't at all.
After we do Beetlejuice, we have, because you got to have a sequel. You got to have a sequel these days. Back in March, we did March Madness for 90s TV shows. We're doing it again.
Awesome.
Part 2, it's going to be me, Dean, and the king of the 90s, Scott Boyd. Mm-hmm. As much as I know about the 90s, as much as Dean knows, as much as you know, Scott's knowledge makes us look retarded. So this dude remembers everything that happened on every show. He remembers shows that aired one time, and it's insane. All hail Scott Boyd, because the dude just knows it all. And so we're going to have him in. I got 32 more shows that I was able to dig out of the woodwork that I will be personally putting the matchups up on the Instagram page for the Multiverse Movie Podcast, which is at Multiverse Movie Podcast. You can vote by going on to the stories, and then we're going to put the poll up, and you just pick which one. Yeah. At the end of that day, that winner moves on to the Sweet 16, which the three of us will debate and whittle down to one. The last time we did it back in March, the winner was Seinfeld, to no surprise of anybody.
Yeah.
But this time, I don't know who the winner is going to be.
Oh, interesting.
Because there's some wild cards in there. Mm-hmm. I got some banger sitcoms that I couldn't put on the first time. And I swear to fucking God, if Friends makes it into the Sweet 16, I will end the fucking tournament and nobody will have a winner.
Well, it looks like the tournament's going to end early, ladies and gentlemen.
I purposely left the show off because it's a garbage fucking show. I know people love it and it's got its popularity, so I had to put it in here. If I could rig the contest and have friends go up against Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the first round, then I fucking would, because I know Turtles would trump it. But I can't do that. They're not in the same bracket. I have to wait.
Well, we are looking forward to that as always. So head over to anywhere you listen to podcasts and subscribe, follow the Multiverse Movie Podcast. Those guys do a terrific job. But for us here in the Hot Tag, that's George Rogers. I'm Christy Francesco, and we'll catch you guys here down the road. Have a great rest of your week and weekend. We'll see you here next Monday night, as always, for week 3 of the War Room as we rewind and rewatch the entire Monday Night Wars in order. Looking forward to it. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.